You found yourself on another edition of Let 'em Know Kings of the 313, and on today's episode, Donovan Mitchell leads the Cavs to a victory in Brooklyn. The Sacramento's offense came back like it never left in a victory over Utah, and while the Detroit Pistons lost against Miami, they showed that they're going to be a competitive bunch this year. There is a ton to build on after last night's games. We're going to get into all of that and plenty more on today's edition of Let 'em Know Kings of the 313. Let's go! And now, ladies and gentlemen, in the place to be, it is that time for the post-game reaction podcast to the Cleveland Cavaliers, Sacramento Kings, and the Pistons from the D. This is Let 'em Know Kings in the 3-1-3. What up, what up, what up? Welcome to another edition of Let 'em Know Kings in the 313. This, of course, is your post-game reaction podcast to the Cleveland Cavaliers, Detroit Pistons, and the Sacramento Kings. And our teams have a combined record of 2 wins and 1 loss to start the 2023-2024 season. I'm your host, Scarlett Weisberg. Thank you so much for tuning in to Let 'em Know Kings in the 313. As a friendly reminder, you can find this show wherever you get your podcast. These platforms include Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and Radio Public. You can also go to anchor.fm/CLESK313. That is the official website of the Let 'em Know Kings in the 313 podcast. And you can download the Spotify for Podcasters app as well on your iTunes or Google Play stores. If you can be so kind and generous, please give the show a follow on those platforms. Turn on your notifications so you know about the next episode. Please rate, spread the word out to your friends, and give Let 'em Know Kings in the 313 a 5-star review. It is another awesome way to support the show. I thank you guys for tuning in, as always, to Let 'em Know Kings in the 313. Now, normally when I planned this show in my head last night, I was thinking, why don't we talk about the wins first? Why don't we talk about the Cavs and the Kings getting wins? I'm going to get to that in just a second, but I want to start this show by talking about the one team that unfortunately had a very tough loss against the Eastern Conference champion Miami Heat, and that was the Detroit Pistons by a final score of 103-102. And to be perfectly honest with you, the Pistons made this a ball game in the second half. I mean, I didn't really like the fact that the Pistons got outscored 32-18 in the second quarter. The first half, I think, was a classic Detroit Piston first half. For me, what I saw in the first half was the Detroit Pistons didn't do an amazing job about valuing possessions in the first half because they were turnover happy. They were turning the ball over a lot, giving the Miami Heat some extra possessions. In the second half, give Monty Williams credit, the Pistons cleaned up and they played really, really good basketball to start the second half of the game, while the Miami Heat outscored the Detroit Pistons 32-18 in the second quarter. The Pistons outscored the Heat 84-71 the rest of the way. So, in all of retrospect, the Detroit Pistons only played one bad quarter last night in Miami, and that was the second quarter. But other than that, the Detroit Pistons outscored the Heat 84-71. And Monty Williams, the head coach of the Detroit Pistons, said, "We played the kind of basketball we played for 3 quarters. We had a bad second quarter." I think what Monty Williams and the Detroit Pistons are going to have to learn in the course of the season is they have to play a complete 48-minute basketball game. I like the fact that they played for 36 minutes of this game. They had a bad at 12 minutes, and that nearly costed the Detroit Pistons the win here. But what I also really loved about this game was the Detroit Pistons didn't give up. I mean, when they had a really bad second quarter, and I mean, it was just god darn awful. That second quarter was probably the worst second quarter that I've ever seen in all my life of following the Detroit Pistons. But the Detroit Pistons showed their resilience. They showed their resilience in the course of this game. Monty Williams said, we have a resilient group. The guys believe in what we're doing. They believe in each other. I think that stuff is really important. And I agree with them. I agree with him. This is a confidence builder. Sure, it's a loss for Detroit. I'm not gonna say that the Detroit Pistons didn't deserve to win last night, because with an 84-71 outscoring for the remainder of the game that the Pistons had, they deserved to win last night in Miami. It was just one bad quarter that costed the Heat to win this game. And the Miami led 58-47 at halftime. The main reason of that was Cade Cunningham. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Cade Cunningham is back, and he's looking like he's built different. He lost, or I should say, he sat out for the remainder of the 2022-23 season last year due to I think it was a leg injury, a calf injury, somewhere like that, and he only played for 12 games last year. Ladies and gentlemen, he dropped 30 in his first game back with the Detroit Pistons. He dropped 30 points in this game. 30 points. Cade Cunningham is so back, and he's playing like he's back like he never left. Could he be a Detroit Pistons All-Star this year? Abso-freaking-lutely, he could be an All-Star. I just need him to stay healthy. But you know what? I am really proud of the Detroit Pistons, despite the fact that it was a tough loss. Despite the fact that it was a loss against the Eastern Conference champion. You got to give the Miami Heat credit. That is a good, well-coached basketball team that the Pistons played against. As far as the stats for this game, the Pistons in field goal percentage shot 44, or I'm going to call it 45% for the field compared to 40% for the Miami Heat. 36% from three-point range from Miami, 34.5% for the Pistons. I think the Detroit Pistons need to do a better job of getting to the foul line. They only shot 9 attempts from the free throw line compared to 21 for Miami, because they were fouling a lot. They were fouling a lot in the course of this game, and that is why the Pistons did not look like themselves getting into the foul line. You know, another thing that I believe that Monty Williams is going to tell these guys is you got to learn how to defend, and you got to learn how to defend without fouling. Because if you get into foul trouble early, you're going to be in a really, really bad spot for the rest of the course of this game. And I think that's where the Pistons struggled as well. Not only the bad quarter, but I think the Pistons need to learn to defend without fouling. And also, I think they need to do a better job of taking care of the basketball. 17 turnovers in this game for Detroit compared to only 7 for Miami. But they only scored 9 points off of 7 turnovers, while the Pistons had 17 points but scored 25 off of the 7 turnovers. So I think the Pistons need to do a much more better job of taking care of the basketball, evaluating each possession, and I think the Pistons are going to get there. They are a young team, they are a scrappy bunch, and they are going to get there. It's going to take time for Monty Williams and the Pistons to develop some kind of chemistry on the basketball court, and I believe they are going to do that. As far as the leaders of this game, Cade Cunningham, 30 freaking points in his first game back in Detroit. He was 13 of 27 from the field for the one-time number 1 overall pick out of Oklahoma State. He also had 9 assists, nearly a double-double in his first game back, with 3 rebounds and a block and a steal. Jalen Duren, he also did really well for Detroit, 17 points, 14 rebounds, double-double for him with 4 assists. Ausar Thompson, he didn't do much offensively, right? He didn't do much offensively. He only scored 4 points, but he also had 7 rebounds in this game. But the biggest stat for me for Ausar Thompson, he had 5 blocks in this game. That is the 3rd most blocks by a rookie in a season opener in NBA history. So I got to give Ausar Thompson a lot of credit on the defensive side of the basketball. He didn't do really well on the offensive side, but he made it up for it on the defensive side of the basketball, and that was a really big thing for Ausar Thompson. He is going to be something special. Watch out for him, ladies and gentlemen. As far as Miami, Tyler Hero, 16 points, 3 assists and 3 steals. He had a really great game. Kevin Love, 13 points, 3 for 6 from downtown, and Big Bam Adebayo, 22 points. He led the Miami Heat in scoring tonight with 8 rebounds and 3 assists, and also with 2 steals and 2 blocks. Duncan Robinson coming off the bench. He was really impressive with 15 points and 3 for 5 from 3-point range. You know, it was a tough loss for the Detroit Pistons, but this loss is a confidence-building loss for me because the Pistons are a team that got that dog in them. They got some dogs in the 3-1-3. So it was a really, really valiant effort, a really gritty effort, in the words of George Blaha, the legendary broadcaster of the Detroit Pistons. Good job by him, as always. It was a gritty loss for Detroit. They might be 0-1, but they could have been 1-0, and that's how the Detroit Pistons were so resilient in the course of this game. It was a good loss for the Detroit Pistons. I know losing is terrible, but it was a good loss for the Detroit Pistons, and it will help them build confidence going forward. I promise you that. When we come back, we're going to talk about the 2 dubs that happened last night. The Cleveland Cavaliers over Brooklyn by 1 point, and the Sacramento Kings look like the Sacramento Kings of last year. We'll break the Cavs and the Kings victories down when we come back on Let 'Em Know Kings in the 3-1-3. We're back on Let 'Em Know Kings in the 3-1-3. It is time to talk about the 2 dubs that the Cavs and the Kings had. But first and foremost, I want to talk about my favorite team, the Cleveland Cavaliers. And for the first time since 2000, the Cleveland Cavaliers opened up the season on the road, and they got their first road win in a season opener, beating the Brooklyn Nets by 1 point by a final score of 114-113. Now, the Cavaliers had 6 players score in double figures. Max Strus, who started in place of injured center Jared Allen, he had his best game in a Cavalier debut. I mean, look, this guy was shooting the 3. This guy was playing well on the defensive side. But this guy, most of all, is a sharp shooter, ladies and gentlemen. That's why the Cavaliers got him off of a sign-in trade. He had 27 points and 12 rebounds tonight. Isaac Okoro last night scored 18 points, and DG finished with 15. Donovan Mitchell said after the game, the thing about our team is that we're really resilient. When the games are close, you have to be locked in defensively. For me, when it's time, just kind of picking my spots and kind of getting to where I wanted to. There were some positives for Cleveland in this win, but there was a lot of negatives for the Cleveland Cavaliers in this 114-113 win for me over the Brooklyn Nets. The positive thing is our offense looks much better than last year. Much better than last year, and it's not even close. The reason why that I think the Cavaliers offense looked better than last year is because they got some pure shooters now. I mean, it's not just Max Strus, who, by the way, shot the ball right out of the gym. It's not just Donovan Mitchell, who is like one of the coldest scorers in the NBA in recent memory. I'm going to keep it honest with you. But the Cavaliers also got some depth out of the bench. They got Ty Jerome. They had Georges Niang. They had Amani Bates and Tristan Thompson, who didn't play in this game. I know Damian Jones got in some of that action, so sorry, I got a little tickle in my throat. But it was a good thing to see Cleveland's depth on full display. Donovan Mitchell said tonight was a good win for the Cleveland Cavaliers, but there are things that we, myself included, could have done better to ultimately not rely on that last shot. And there are some things that the Cavaliers could ultimately do to try to get better heading into the next game, which is tomorrow against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And oh, by the way, the Thunder are one of the best shooting teams in the NBA so far. I know it's only one game, but I am really impressed with the Thunder and how they shot the ball, especially with Giddey, Chet Holmgren, who made his season debut last night in Chicago, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is one of the coldest players in basketball today. Hey, let's just be honest with that. I think Donovan Mitchell versus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, get your popcorn ready, folks. It is going to be a very, very, very exciting matchup. But there are a couple of things that I saw with the Cavs last night that I think we need to do better at. The first thing is, obviously, we gotta learn how to take care of the basketball. Much like Detroit, I think the Cleveland Cavaliers were not meaning any passes. They were sloppy with the ball, right? And they were just acting a little casual on offense instead of making the simple play. And they made some really great plays, especially with Donovan Mitchell's steal late in the fourth quarter and Donovan Mitchell's game-winning three, and obviously with how many times that Max Strus got some clutch buckets in the end. But the thing that I want to see the Cavs improve on heading into their next game against Oklahoma City. I need to see the Cleveland Cavaliers work on communication, especially on the defensive end. Because there was one point in the game where the Brooklyn Nets got beat. The Cavs got beat by a backdoor cut by Brooklyn because the Nets did a really good job slipping a pin-down stagger screen, and the Cavaliers did not meet the screen. They did not communicate. They did not help each other out on that play, and I think the Cavs need to do a much better job at communicating. And another thing that they gotta work on is not getting beat by the bench. I saw one stat in this game for Cleveland and Brooklyn, which honestly I wanted to throw up when I saw it. I literally wanted to throw up when I saw this stat because I would ultimately go off. How in the hell do you get outscored 60-12 off the bench? 60-12 off the bench. Really? Really? That's not the team that had one of the best scoring defenses in the NBA last year. It's not. I don't care if we're 1-0. That's not going to win games, especially when we give up 60 points on the bench. 30 of them, or half of them, came from a guy named Cam Thomas, who scored 36 points off the bench. He set a record for Brooklyn for the most points coming off the bench in a opener. That's not good enough. I'm sorry. I don't care if we're 1-0. I'm happy with the win, but right now, I think the Cavaliers have a lot of work to do. The Cavs have a lot of work to do, especially on communication, especially on defense, not getting beat backdoor on a stagger pin down screen action, and they need to do a better job of not letting guys coming from the bench beat them. I mean, the final stat points for this game, this game by the Cavaliers and the Nets. some of them were really impressive. Some of them were really impressive stats. For the Cavs, they shot 46% from the field tonight. Let's call it what it is. Let's call it 47% to 50%. That's nearly identical as far as shooting-wise for both teams. The three-point percentage really stood out for me. 39.5% from the field from three-point range for the Cavs compared to 33% for Brooklyn. Again, the free throw percentage, 90% for Cleveland, but only 9 attempts, 77% from Brooklyn, and 20 attempts. Again, they need to do a better job of defending without fouling. I also think that the Brooklyn Nets were much more physical than us. 50 rebounds compared to 38. Only 13 of them were offensive rebounds. So boxing out is another thing that the Cavaliers need to work on. As far as points in the paint, 56 to 50 in favor of Brooklyn. But let's be honest here. I think the Brooklyn Nets were much more of a physical team than Cleveland at most points of the game. As far as turnovers, 18 to 10. The Nets had more turnovers than the Brooklyn Nets. The steals were 10 to 6 in favor of Cleveland. I thought that the Cavaliers did an amazing job of getting into the passing lanes and creating steals and points off transition, especially with that bucket late by Donovan Mitchell. As far as who stood out for this game for Cleveland, Donovan Mitchell and Max Strus both scored 27 points to lead the Cavaliers. Mitchell finished with 27 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals in this game. Max Strus had 27 points in this game, but he was 7 for 13 from three-point land and a double-double with 12 rebounds, all of them defensively with 2 assists, a steal, and a block. Donovan Mitchell also got a block in this game. Evan Mobley, he did pretty good. 10 points, 6 rebounds, 2 blocks. Isaac Okoro, as I mentioned earlier, with 18 points, with 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. Coming off the bench, Karis LeVert had 11 points with 5 assists and 3 rebounds in this game. As far as the Brooklyn Nets, the real story of the game was Cam Thomas. 36 points coming off the bench with 3 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal. He was 8 for 11 from the three-point line, and I think we did a really bad job of defending Cam Thomas. I think we let Cam Thomas a little off the hook at times. He was 2 for 5 from three-point land, playing only 25 minutes off the bench. It was just too easy for Cam Thomas. We did a really good job with most of the starting lineup. I know Mikal Bridges got 20 points, but he's going to get his one way or another. He finished with 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals, but I think the Cavaliers need to do a better job of reading the scouting report and not letting bench guys like Cam Thomas beat them, and I think it's going to be a really big point of emphasis when the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Brooklyn Nets meet again on January 11th, but it's not going to be in Brooklyn, it's not going to be in Cleveland, it is going to be the NBA Paris game, so we got a couple of months to adjust to Brooklyn, adjust to what Cam Thomas did to y'all on opening night. We could see a different roster come January 11th because of injuries and stuff like that, so we're going to see how that plays out. But overall, it was a good win. In the words of Donovan Mitchell, it was a good, resilient win for the Cleveland Cavaliers, but they have a lot of stuff to clean up on. But at the end of the day, the Cavaliers are 1-0, and that's all that matters. Coming up next, we are going to talk about the most complete performance of the 3 teams. That is right, the Sacramento Kings lit up the beam in Utah as they dominated the Utah Jazz on the road to kick off the 2023-24 season for the Pacific Division champions. We're going to talk about that next on Let 'Em Know Kings in the 313. Welcome back to Let 'em Know Kings of the 313, final segment of today's show, and I have a little public service announcement for you guys. The Sacramento Kings are back like they never left, y'all. Let me say that again. The Kings are back like they never left. They went back to where they left off. They haven't forgot where they left off, considering the fact that they got eliminated by the Golden State Warriors in the first round of the playoffs. But they went back to the Sacramento Kings that we knew and loved from the regular season last year as they annihilate, they embarrass, they dominate the Utah Jazz at their season home opener by a final score of 130 to 114. In my opinion, that was the most complete performance out of all three teams in the season opener last night. Now let me explain what I mean by that. In sports, you gotta play a complete game in order to win. In basketball, you got to play a complete 40 minutes, or in some colleges, you got to play 40 minutes. In women's college games, you got to play 40 minutes in all four quarters. In the NFL, you got to play 60 minutes. For hockey, you got to play 60 minutes. The Sacramento Kings, in my opinion, played one of the most complete performances I have ever seen, and it's only day one. Understand that. It's only day one, and they are going to experience some adversity because I think expectations for the Sacramento Kings this year are really, really, really high. Because last year, the Sacramento Kings came out of nowhere and nobody expected them. Now that everybody knows that Sacramento is pretty damn good, their expectations are going to be really high this season. But as it pertains to this game, what a dominant performance. What a dominant performance by Sacramento, more especially on the offensive side of the ball. The Kings buried the Utah Jazz from the perimeter, knocking down 19 threes. 19 threes of 51 three-point attempts. Overall, the Sacramento Kings shot 46% from the field. Overall, for a first game of the season, that's impressive. That is really, really impressive. And what's even more impressive was the Sacramento Kings got some turnovers on the defensive side of the ball. The Jazz tried to play a little 2-3 matchup zone, try to contain Domantas Sabonis around the basket, force the Sacramento Kings to force and chuck a lot of threes instead of going into the paint. I understand that game plan by Utah. I understand that. But what did Katie Christensen from the broadcast that I watched last night say about the zone? You don't have to chuck a lot of quick threes in the flow of the offense. You got to go to the sharp corners and try to get it into the middle of the paint. Although the zone defense was a really good idea for Utah, it burned the Utah Jazz at the same time because it led to plenty of open looks for guys like Kevin Huerter, for guys like Davion Mitchell, for guys like Malik Monk, who, by the way, ended Chris Dunn's career with the dunk of the year. Chris Dunn, if you are listening to this, why are you playing the game of basketball? Just retire at this point. Call it a career. Go back to your family and go back to Providence College where you belong. How could you get postered by one of the coldest guys in Sacramento in Malik Monk? I mean, I'm still shocked about how high he got on that poster. He was so high that Domantas Sabonis got up from the bench and he went crazy. Oh my God. Oh my God. Malik Monk, that was the coldest poster that I've ever seen all year. That was nasty. That was a nasty poster by Malik Monk. I see you, boy. But back to what I've been saying. The zone for Utah, even though I like the scheme of the Jazz defensively, it opened up the opportunity for sharpshooters of the Sacramento Kings. Guys like Malik Monk, guys like Davion Mitchell, guys like Mr. Fourth Quarter De'Aaron Fox, who cooked last night. Guys like Harrison Barnes, who was 3 points shy of his career high last night. And guys like Keegan Murray, who finished with 15 points and made 4 shots from way downtown. Keegan Murray said about the zone, and I quote, "We saw it a lot last year. We were able to go through that film and find different things that work, and we just put those to work today, and we were able to see a lot of shots go in." They did a really great job of recognizing the zone, reading what the defense gave them, and then reacted in doing what they needed to do. They did a really good job with the dribble handoff action. They did a really good job with their screening. They did a really good job with the pick and roll. It was a vintage Sacramento offensive team that led the NBA in scoring last year, and they look like they're playing with that kind of offense, for the Sacramento Kings. And it was a really, really good job of making a statement on the road. About the win, Harrison Barnes said, and I quote, "It is important just from a confidence perspective to go out there and start the season the right way, especially getting a win on the road. In order to be a good team, you have to win on the road." Exactly my point for Harrison Barnes. It was an impressive win, especially on the road. Now, I get that wins are hard to come by in this league, right? Wins in the NBA or in any league in general do not come easy. You got to work for it, and you got to play hard in order to get the win. To Sacramento's credit, they played really, really hard. Now, they did allow Utah to get back into the fourth quarter. They allowed Utah to gain a little bit of hope at the end of the fourth quarter, but Sacramento did a really nice job of staying composed. They did a really good job playing their game, and they didn't take their foot right out of the gas, and that's why Sacramento was able to dominate this game. Sacramento head coach Mike Brown did not talk about his team win in his post-game remarks, and because, and I don't want to get a little political on this show, there was a mass shooting in Lewiston, Maine that left at the time at least 16 dead. I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to leave this at that. Where is the love in the world? Where is, like, the compassion? Where is the decency? I mean, we've already been through a lot, and we don't want to hear about another tragedy. So you need to do better in spreading love and kindness into the world, and I'm going to probably leave it at that. Sacramento did a really nice job of getting the win tonight. As far as the Utah Jazz, Will Hardy said that the communication for the Utah Jazz was not sharp in this game. That's a moment where the map is against you. I think in general we really struggled in transition to get matched up and to contain the ball and to contain their shooters. I think Utah is going to be in a rebuild sort of a situation, but it's not about Utah. It is about Sacramento. And Sacramento, if you're listening to this, light the beam. Light the beam. The beam was lit up in Sacramento last night after a 131-14 big dominant win by the Sacramento Kings. Katie Christensen also said, if you have a big lead, you got to make a statement. You got to make a statement from start to finish. You got to play for 48 minutes, wire to wire, maintaining a lead and not giving teams hope. I think for the most part, the Sacramento Kings did a really good job of that. But at the same time, though, you can't give teams hope. You can't give bottom of the barrel teams. Teams like San Antonio, teams like Utah, teams like Washington, who got smoked 143-120 over the Indiana Pacers. Over the Washington Wizards, the Indiana Pacers won that game. I saw that scoreline of the Pacers game, and I was like, damn. Either the Pacers were that good or Washington is just that bad. And Washington is all bad, ladies and gentlemen. If you are a Washington Wizards fan and you are listening to Let 'Em Know Kings of the 313, I'm sorry to tell everybody the truth, but Washington is going to be a really bad team this year. I don't see this Washington Wizards team compete for anything except for another number one pick next year. Either them or Portland is going to get the number one pick because the Blazers are definitely in a rebuild year thanks to Damian Lillard in Milwaukee. He's making his debut tonight for the Milwaukee Bucks against the Philadelphia 76ers. But back to the Sacramento Kings, back to the Beam team. The Kings shot 46% from the field tonight, 37% from three-point land, 85% from the foul line. Impressive by them. As far as the rebounds, though, 54-45 in favor of Utah. The Jazz shot 45% from the field, 32% from three, 74% from the free throw line tonight. As far as the assists, 29-22 in favor of Sacramento. I think the Kings did an amazing job of sharing the basketball. The points in the paint, 64-48 in favor of the Utah Jazz. I think that is a given because I still think Sacramento is still not tall enough when it comes to the paint. I get that they had JaVale McGee, which is a really good pickup, but not for nothing, I think Sacramento is still tiny in that regard. They need to do a better job of building some size, getting into the paint, but you can't take away from a victory, right? As long as we get the win, that's all that matters in this league. Harrison Barnes was 3 points shy of tying his career high in 36 points. He finished with 33 with 4 rebounds, 2 assists, shooting 5 for 7 from three-point land. Domantas Sabonis, he did really well in this game. 22 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, and 2 big blocks. He was 5 for 7 from the three-point line. Keegan Murray, 15 points, 2 blocks, 8 rebounds, and assists, 4 for 9 from three-point land. De'Aaron Fox was doing De'Aaron Fox things, 18 points, 5 for 6 from the three-point line with 6 rebounds, 6 assists, with 5 rebounds. Sasha Vezenkov made his regular season debut. He finished with 8 points with 2 rebounds and 2 steals in this game. And Malik Monk, 10 points, 7 assists, 2 rebounds, and the poster of the year over Chris Dunn. I'm still not over it, y'all. I'm still not over how high Malik Monk is. And Chris Dunn, if you're listening to this, just end your basketball career. Just end your basketball career. Go back to Providence. Go back to college. Go back to school. Find another profession because Malik Monk just baptized you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit on that one. Ooh-wee. Overall, good team win for Sacramento. Great statement win for the Kings because they are heading home to take on the Golden State Warriors in a rematch of an instant classic playoff series. And let me tell you something right now. If you're going to Golden One Center in Sacramento, California, you better bring your cowbells. You better bring your vocal cords. You better bring your energy. You better bring all that Black Air Force One energy all over Golden One Center because that building is going to be absolutely loud. One of the best home court advantages in the NBA is going to be through the freaking roof at 10 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. I will be watching that game with full intent. But overall, though, it was a good win for Cleveland, a dominant win for Sacramento, and for Detroit, I know it was a tough loss, but you showed me that you got that dog in you, and I am really proud of that effort. That's going to do it for today's edition of Let 'Em Know Kings in the 313. You can find this show on Amazon Music, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, Pandora, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to this show. Give the show a follow on the platforms. Turn on your notifications so you know about the next episode. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app so you know what the next episode is on your iTunes or Google Play stores. Give the show a follow. Turn on your notifications. Give a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's show. I'm your host, Skylar Weisberg, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy Cleveland Cavaliers, Detroit Pistons, and Sacramento Kings basketball, and I will see you right back here for another episode of Let 'Em Know Kings in the 3-1-3.